Torah at any time, for making Torah available anytime, any place, anywhere, to anyone. Like it. Like that. Press that like button. What else? What other buttons you got to press? Subscribe. What is it? Ring the bell. Let me know your comments. You know, with this, what I'd like to say, I'm going to tell you something. I remember when I was a bacher like you guys, I went to somebody's house. We were invited to somebody's house Shabbos lunch, and a friend of mine said over a vart. He said over a chiddush. It was Parshas Kisavai. Can you imagine? I remember this vart. I remember the vart that he said because it was such a great chiddush. I asked him, "Who says this?" And he goes, "Me." He said this vart. Mordechai Neustadt. Today he's Rabbi Dr. Mordechai Neustadt. He said over like this. You know, we go through a whole Tochacha, a lot of curses. You guys read through it. I don't know if you had a chance to read through the English. It's pretty, it's like shocking. You almost don't believe it's real. Like, oh, real, but then all these different things that happened at Klal Yisrael over the past couple thousand years, if you'd see what that would look like, you'd say, oh yeah, it was real. Those words are real. It took place. Every single word. Horrible. And who brought those curses? We did. Didn't happen by itself. Hashem says, you press this button, this is what happens. And guess what? We press the button. So it says that towards like the middle of the curses in this Tochacha, it says, why does it happen? Because you did not serve Hashem, your God, b'simcha, with happiness, joy, b'tuv, levav, full heart, happy heart, me'rov kol, with everything you got. So since you didn't serve Hashem with you're happy and with everything, so that comes along the curses. He asked a question. He goes, it's a little bit strange. Because you weren't happy and you didn't serve, all these things happened. I mean, these are pretty wicked curses. It doesn't say because you did Aveirus. You know, it says because you didn't serve Hashem with joy and all these, with everything you got. And he asked another question. He's towards the end, the Tochacha, the curses get progressively worse. If you go through them, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So finally, at the end of the mamish, at the end, last couple of sukkahs of the Tochacha, it says, "V'hoyu chayecha teluyim l'cha mineged." Your life, teluyim l'cha, will be hanging in front of you. Mineged in front of you. Ufacharata laila v'yoymam, and you'll be scared night and day. V'lo yisamen b'chayecha, and you will not believe in your life. You won't even believe, like, am I alive? I don't believe in life anymore. Just take it away from me. So Rashi explains from the Gemara, very interesting. It says, what does it mean? It says, goes through each of these things. It says, your days will be hanging, your life will be hanging in front of you. So it says, the Gemara darshans out in Menachos. It says an interesting thing. It says, what does this mean? Your days or your life will be hanging in front of you? It says, this is a guy who buys tavua, he buys his grain minashuk from the marketplace. So really, you got enough money in your pocket that you need grain for a whole year. You take your money, you go to the market, and you buy a whole year's worth of tavua. You can buy all the food that you need for the year. You go into the shuk. So your days are going to be hanging in front of you, your life's going to be hanging in front of you. It's going to be so bad that what? You're going to go into the marketplace and buy a whole year's worth of your produce, everything you need, the tavua, at once from the market. What kind of curse is that, right? So what's the curse? The Gemara explains that the curse is you don't have land. You're not going to have your own land, but you're going to have money in your pocket. You might have money, but you don't have land. Then it goes worse. The next thing says, "V'loi samim b'chayecha," and you will not even believe in your life. What does that mean? No. This is not a guy who's going to have enough money to buy the whole year's worth of tefillah. He's going to have to buy every day his bread from the baker. He's going to soymach ala palter. He really relies on the baker. Every day, you don't know. In fact, so the pasuk then continues and says, Bab hoiker taimar, in the morning going to say, who's going to give us evening? Uva erev taimar mi'item boiker. And in the evening going to say, who's going to give me morning? Meaning, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Is it going to be bread? What's going to happen? What's going to be next? I don't know where I'm getting my next food. But Lamaisa, you do have food. All right, you can buy it from the baker, but you have. So he says, one second. So the curse is that you don't know what's going to happen next, right? So he goes, didn't Klal Yisrael, this is a famous kasha that Rav Chaim Shalev has asked, he goes, didn't Klal Yisrael live in the Midbar and did they know what's going to come next? No. Okay, so we're fine, but maybe you're relying now on Hashem too. But the point is, you didn't have. He says, like, you didn't know if the mun's going to come the next day. You don't know where your mun's going to come, but like, it's very similar. It's not it doesn't sound like it's, are you going to say they had also a curse because they didn't know what's going to happen the next day? You're right, they're relying on Hashem, but they didn't know what's going to be. Maybe there won't be mun tomorrow. They don't know where it's going to come. Maybe I'll do an Aveira, and the mun's further away, or it's going to be outside the Machane. I got to walk. Who knows, right? So he goes like, how is this such a horrible curse when Klal Yisrael lived like this for 40 years in the Midbar? They lived in the desert for 40 years like this. You're going to say they lived a life of curses? So he said over a fascinating thought. He said the word tachas could mean under, could mean because, and it could mean in place of. In place of. So in place of serving Hashem with joy, and in place of serving, meaning instead of serving Hashem with happiness, is going to be this curses. So, you could have served Hashem with happiness. Instead, you didn't serve Hashem with happiness. So since you didn't serve, not since, but in place of that, you get these curses. So, it's still not so clear. That's the vart that he said. And Rabbi, I remember telling him at the time, I said, you know what? I think this is such a fascinating thought. You know why? Because it really means the same exact situation that you're in. The same situation. You know what they say, the cup is half full or half empty? In the same exact place that you're in. Two people could be in the same place. You could be in the same place. And it could be great or it could be miserable. The same exact thing. But it's all about your attitude. It's all about your approach. So in place of being happy, you chose to be miserable. So all of a sudden, like you're living in the midbar and you don't know what's going to come tomorrow. But you know, oh, this is geschmack. We're learning, we're steiging, we're with Hashem. It's amazing. This is the highest level. But then, lahavdil, a person is like miserable. It's not like you said, it's not thinking about Hashem, and he's not this, and he's just kvetching. And everything is like, what's going to be tomorrow? Is it going to be bread, the baker? And then he walks to the baker. Oh, wow, it's a baker. There's all kinds of baked goods. It's amazing. But he didn't know what's going to happen. So it's like the whole night, miserable. Oh, good. At least there's bread. Oh, at least there's stuff that, right? And it was great. You walk down the block, you smell the fresh bread, but, oh, thank God. Right? So you eat it, you go, finally. He doesn't go, thank you, Hashem, that is amazing. He's just fetching. So in place of it. So you should know for years, wow, this has been a lot of years. It's kind of probably about, I don't know, maybe at least 40 years that I remember hearing this vart. 40 years ago. But this Shabbos, I just bring this up because this Shabbos, I was sitting by Shachris and we're reading the Haftarah, and something hit me. You know, every week we have an Haftarah. The Torah is connected to the Parsha. You know, the Chazal put a certain Haftarah with that week's Parsha. And this Haftarah is one of the 7 haftarahs from Yeshaya that is supposed to be a nechama. It's supposed to be a comfort to us. But in the haftarah, towards the end, I saw something that really jumped out at me. The Navi writes, Yeshaya says, Tachas heyoseich azuva usnua ve'in oiver. And it clearly doesn't mean because. The word tachas here does not mean because. It says, Tachas heyoseich, you were azuva, you were abandoned, and snua, you were hated, ve'in oiver, there was nothing, no connection over here. V'samtich, Hashem says, I will put you, l'ga'oin olam, somebody great. Messiah's dar v'dar, you'll be happy for forever, eternity, from generation to generation. Then he continues, and he says again, a couple psukim later, Tachas hanachayshes, in place of copper, avi zahav, I will bring gold. Tachas barzel avi kesef, in place of, not because of, because you can't say the word tachas means because of, or underneath. It has to mean in place of, instead of. So it means instead of iron, I will bring silver. Tachas eitzim, in place of wood. Nechayshes, tachas avonim barzel. Again, he repeats, in place of, in place of, in place of, in place of. Meaning almost to tell us that when the word tachas, and it's not used that often, the word tachas, but the tachas in the parsha of tachas, asher lo yavadatas, Hashem lekecha, is really referring to not because, but in place of. And it repeats it again and again and again. They pick the piece of the Navi where it says tachas, 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 again, in place of, in place of, in place of, really to hammer it home that it's in place of. It's all about our attitude. Going back to that, it's in place of being happy, we chose to be miserable. So all of a sudden, you know what happens? Everything around you is a curse. Every good thing, you know what they say, the cup is half full or half empty. How can someone gives you a cup of water or a cup of soda, right? They give you a cup of Coke. How can a cup of Coke be miserable? And the answer is because they only gave you half a cup. I wanted a whole cup. So the half a cup to me means nothing. You know, Chazal, that's right. Chazal say a person has a half. He has one mana. Writes a Messiah, he wants 2 manas. So you have a half a cup. What do you want? A whole cup. As soon as you get the 1 cup, what do you really want? The next cup. Where's the next cup? So if you have that attitude, even the 1 cup is miserable. And everything becomes like a curse. Even the good stuff. You have a year's worth of tvuah. But you know what? But I don't have land. I have a year's worth. I'm in my pocket. I can go into the market and I can buy a whole year's worth of food. But what's my complaint? I don't have land. I want property. I don't have enough property or whatever. That's what people say. I don't have enough. The next curse. You walk down the block worrying. Is it going to be bread at the baker? Is it going to be bread at the baker? Bread? Sure you get there? Okay, fine, there's bread. But what about tomorrow? Always we can find things to complain about. And the Torah tells us, if you don't look at it in the right happy way. I remember once we made a Sheva Brachas. A friend of mine got married. And a bunch of yeshiva guys, we hadn't been by Sheva Brachas, they made them in real fancy restaurants. So you think they're going to bunch of yeshiva schlepper guys, to the restaurant to Fres? No. So they didn't invite us. So all of us, we wanted to be, he was our close friend. So we made him Sheva Brachas because it turns out he was moving, the couple were moving into their apartment. It was the last day of Sheva Brachas. The last Sheva Brachas was the night before. The next day it's going to be Shkia early. It was the winter time, so it's not really a chance to make a Sheva Brachas. So it's over. Sheva Brachas are over. Well, they thought so. They showed up to their apartment, and we had gone out and we bought, a couple salamis and we bought, a loaf or two of bread, and we bought some chopped liver, and all the things that you need to make a good Sheva Brachos with. Coleslaw, and a couple bottles of Coke. No cookies, no dessert. We didn't have fancy dessert. Dessert was, I think, chopped liver. Anyway, so more chopped liver. So maybe with some coleslaw with it, all right? So they come into their apartment. There's no chairs. There's no table. They didn't have beds yet. They didn't have anything. They're moving in for the first time. I don't know what happened, but there was nothing there. And it was just a bunch of guys sitting on the floor saying, Mazel Tov, sit down, sit there on the ground with us, right? And we sat and we had bread, salami, no plates, we had nothing. We had a couple plastic cups we were sharing with each other. Community cup, right? Hey, pass me a drink. The Chassan and Kala, they had their own. We got them cups, right? But gentlemen, you know what they told me for years? The greatest and best Sheva Brachos that they remember was that Sheva Brachos. Simple, very simple. Wasn't the fancy restaurants, wasn't any of that fancy stuff. So it's all about an attitude. You have a happiness and you make life fun, you make a mitzvah fun, you make Yom Tov fun, Shabbos fun. You make it and you have it, you make good things and you enjoy it. That's the greatest. It's the greatest. It feels like the greatest blessing. But if you just make it miserable, and it's like, why do I have to do this? You're right. We have too many expectations. It's a whole other thing. But bottom line is, the choice is ours. The same exact situation can be the greatest blessing or the greatest curse. Think positive. Let's have a great day.